Hello, and welcome to Viva La Action, the movie podcast where we're talking about all things action movies. The good, the bad, the underrated. My name is Santi, and with me as always is my co-host. It's Grayson.
What up?
What up?
Not much. I forgot how to read briefly. And there's that badge over there that says finalist.
Yes.
But I'm stupider than a bag of rocks. So I thought it said finalist.
Ah, yes. It's finalist. It's like French.
Yeah.
Oh, the dog is barking.
Yeah. So anyway, that's how I'm doing.
That's good.
Forgot how to read briefly.
That's okay. It's a bit of a late start for us today. We're in this dark room. Yeah, we're back in the room.
Yeah, wait.
Back in
the room.
Back in the room. The room where it happens. The situation room, as it were.
You just quoted Hamilton, so they're going to copyright us?
Fucking shit. I've gone 200. Jesus Christ.
Oh, God.
400. Whoa! 48 episomes without referencing Hamilton, and I finally did it.
And here it is.
The room where it happens. I'm going to take my shot. Other Hamilton lyrics. But this show is not about Hamilton.
Nope. Thank God for that.
Thank God. I think if we'd started this back in
2016,
we would have made a Hamilton podcast.
Probably, yeah.
But thankfully we're here now.
We're smarter than that.
We're smarter. We're evolved.
Yeah.
And what we do on this show is we watch movies.
Yeah, we do.
And this week we watched a movie.
Yeah, we did.
Called The Mask of Zorro.
Do you know how to use that thing?
Yes. The pointy end goes into the other man.
This is going to take a lot of work. This is called a training circle, the Master's Wheel. This circle will be your world, your whole life. Until I tell you otherwise, there is nothing outside of it.
Captain Love is...
There is nothing outside of it. Captain Love does not exist until I say he exists. As your skill with the sword improves, you will progress to a smaller circle. With each new circle, your world contracts, bringing you that much closer to your adversary, that much closer to retribution.
I like that part.
Shall we?
Nice.
Now, The Mask of Zorro, Grayson, as you would know, is a 1998 action-adventure film based on the fictional character Zorro, created by Johnston McCulley. The film was directed by Martin Campbell with a script by John Iskow, Ted Elliott, and Terry Rossio. The Mask of Zorro stars Antonio Banderas as Zorro / Alejandro Murrieta, with support from Catherine Zeta-Jones, Anthony Hopkins, Stuart Wilson, and Matt Lesher. The film carries an 84% critical score on Rotten Tomatoes, with a 73% audience score.
Really? I thought that would have been higher.
I did too. Or, actually, I think I wrote it down wrong. I think it's 77, not 73. But I also thought it would be higher. I thought it would be like, right there, even with the critical score.
Yeah.
But apparently not.
Huh. That's a bummer.
Would you like to guess if the Mask of Zorro passes the Bechdel test?
It does not.
Incorrect.
It does?
It does very narrowly. Just
really?
like skirts on by.
Really? What?
Well, I guess it's not really spoiler.
Yeah.
There's a scene sort of in the middle of the movie where Catherine Zeta-Jones' character is in like a market. And she's like talking with that woman.
Right.
And technically they're talking about her mother. So they're not talking about a man.
Correct. That is correct.
So we did it, everybody.
Congratulations.
I'm so shocked.
I know. Because I was thinking about it and I was like, okay, yeah, so the original mom doesn't talk to any women. Mm-mm. And then I forgot about that scene.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, and then...
I mean, technically, too, you could say it passes if it counts that a grown woman was talking to a baby. at the very start of the film.
Yeah.
But I don't think it does. But it does pass otherwise, so that's
right.
interesting.
Excellent.
Finally, the plot synopsis from IMDb. A young thief seeking revenge for his brother's death is trained by the once great aging Zorro, who is pursuing his own vengeance.
Ba-ba-ba. Gotta get the fucking, that lion,
Yeah.
that roar.
The roar in, yeah.
Yeah.
So before we get into the rest of the film, and it's like behind the scenes stuff and its history and whatever, what'd you think of this movie, Grayson?
I really liked it.
Yes.
Fuck the audience score. I don't know why
Yeah.
it's so goddamn low.
Yeah.
I thought this was a wonderful movie.
This movie rips.
Yeah, no, it's just a hoot.
I don't say this often. This movie fucking smacks.
It does.
I haven't seen it in a while. I picked it because I was like, we're coming up on episode 50.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm saving something big for episode 50. So I'm like, these next two, I just want to be like little good movies that I have something to say about.
Yeah.
And I was like, The Mask of Zorro, I know that's a good movie. Like, it's a childhood favorite of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just throw it in there. Fuck Me Dead. It's just such a good movie. It's just like, electric.
It is. And this was the first time I'd seen it.
Yeah.
And so I had a blast.
It's a blast. It is. I was thinking about this as I was watching it. I think from like 1990, I'm going to say like 5 to like 2005 was like the peak of like swashbuckler movies.
Yo.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm talking like
Yep.
Man in the Iron Mask. I'm talking.
That's a banger.
Yeah. The Mask of Zorro. The Mummy,
Yo.
fucking Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, they were just knocking it out of the park with
I
these,
know.
like, period set, like, drama, swashbuckler, whatever movies.
Yep.
And I really don't think, it's just fucking, your movie is off to, like a badass start. When the explosion isn't enough, they have to add in like a cat growl on top of it. So it's like an explosion, like whoosh, and then over the top is like a leopard's growl.
Yep.
It's incredible.
It's so good. Might I say too, that explosion.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Some great explosions in
That
this.
was great.
Which you wouldn't expect for a movie set during
like the 1800s.
like the 1840s. But still. So you haven't seen this before.
I have not. This was the first time.
I've seen this many times. So my dad is a big fan of Zorro. And I'm not sure, not just this movie, but as we'll talk about, there's been like 40 adaptations of Zorro on film. And so my dad is like a big fan of Zorro. I remember as a kid him dressing up as Zorro many times for like Halloween.
Cool.
So I was always just a big fan. Like I remember it always kind of being on. But I remember I didn't fully like sit down and watch this movie until I was a little bit older, probably like 11 or 12. And even at the time, just remember being like, this slaps. This is a fucking banger of a movie.
Yeah.
And I feel good about this movie too, because I feel like it's some redemption for Antonio Banderas, who we did really dirty by the first movie of his covering being Ballistic.
Yeah.
Which is just a trash film.
It's so bad.
But this one's not trash. It's incredible.
No, it is really good. Isn't Antonio Banderas also in Spy Kids?
Yes, he is. Yeah, he's the dad in Spy Kids.
If you haven't seen Spy Kids, go watch those.
Yes.
They're a fever dream, but they're so fucking good.
Well, so one thing that's interesting, there's kind of a link. Believe it or not, there is a link between this movie and Spy Kids.
Really?
No, I can talk about this now. So this movie, it went through a kind of an interesting series of production, right? Mm-hmm. And went through a couple of different directors. But at one point, they wanted this movie to be directed by a guy named Robert Rodriguez.
That sounds familiar.
Well, you'll find out why in a second. So Robert Rodriguez had worked with Antonio Banderas on a movie called Desperado, which was it's an action film. Most people would probably recognize some of the scenes from it. It's like an action film set in Mexico. It was Antonio. I want to say it was his first like action role, but anyway, big hit. And so Robert Rodriguez was originally tapped to direct this movie, but he had to drop out for whatever reason. So he was like, but even though he dropped out, he was still like, I want Antonio to do this movie.
Yeah.
Like, he's an incredible actor. I think he'll be great for the part.
Yeah.
Well, Robert Rodriguez, after this film, went on to direct Spy Kids. And he tapped Antonio Banderas to play the father in that movie.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which, another fun fact, have you ever heard of the film Machete?
I've heard of it. I don't think I've ever seen
Danny
it.
Trejo?
Yeah, I've never seen it.
It's a big, like, ultra violent. It's sort of like a grindhouse style movie, where Danny Trejo plays Machete, who's like a special ops agent.
Yeah.
Well, Machete makes his first appearance in Spy Kids. He's their uncle. Like, if you remember Danny Trejo's briefly in that movie, yeah,
I do.
He's playing the same character, but Machete in Spy Kids is, he's like real cleaned up and fun.
Yeah.
Whereas in Machete, he's like ripping people's guts out and like swinging from the, like ceiling with them.
That's incredible.
Yeah, just a fun connection there.
Wow.
If you've never seen Spy Kids, yeah, that's a fever dream of a film. I didn't think I'd link those two today. But.
Yeah, but there we go.
Okay, so let's get into the rest of the film.
Yes.
From here. What would you recommend somebody watch
Absolutely.
this? Okay.
Good. Without a doubt.
Yes.
If somebody's like, oh, I want to watch something new and all this, I'll be like, if you've never seen The Mask of Zorro,
yeah,
do yourself a huge favor and just watch it.
Just sit down. And, I will say, one thing I think is a mark against the movie, it is a little bit long.
I was going to say.
2 hours 14 or 2 hours 17.
Yep.
So it's not quite like brisk, but I think the runtime is justified. Like, I think it pays off really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is long.
Yes.
But I still would recommend it. And
100%.
especially if you have Hulu where it's, you can stream it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good morning, senor.
Good morning, señorita.
Give it back.
What?
Whatever it is you have stolen from my father, I want it back. Give it to me.
No. Ooh. Come on now. I don't have the time to give you the proper instruction.
I have had the proper instruction since I was 4.
I would say the one, because you can't really spoil this movie. It pretty much goes where you think it's going to go. But
Yeah.
I think the one thing that is sort of a spoiler is that Antonio Banderas is not playing the original Zorro.
Correct.
The sort of like duck and weave of this movie is that Anthony Hopkins, who plays Diego de la Vega, he is the original Zorro.
Yep.
He gets thrown in prison at the beginning of the film, and then he later on passes the torch to Antonio Banderas.
Yep.
And I think that might be why the audience score is like a little bit lower. I think there's some people who don't like that. Like when you do that in a movie, they're like, no, it should be the original guy, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's Zorro. Like who cares?
Exactly.
He's a guy. It's a pulp story from the 20s. Like
right. Well, and I was gonna say because so I don't know that much about Zorro except for the opera that we went and saw.
Yes.
Sam, our friend, in. So I don't know much, but this seems like there's an original Zorro movie or story.
Yeah.
And then to me this seems like a sequel kind of.
Sort of.
Sort of? Okay.
I think this to me feels very similar to I'm trying to think of a good example. Something like I guess sort of like kind of like, remember, I don't even know if you're going to know this. Have you ever seen The Incredible Hulk? The one with fucking, what's his name?
Not Not the one we have now.
No, okay. So in the early 2000s,
Yeah.
this is a bad analogy.
Yeah.
There was a movie just called The Hulk, right?
Gotcha.
And it was directed by oh man, what's his name? Ang Lee. And that movie more or less ends on a cliffhanger where at the end you see the guy and he's like in Brazil and he's like, oh, you wouldn't like me when I'm angry, and then you see his eyes turn green or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Well, then they never did a follow-up to that movie because it didn't do very well. So then later on, when they were starting to kick off the MCU, they did a movie called The Incredible Hulk. And it didn't star the actor that was in the Hulk, and it had none of the same whatever because it was a different production company.
Yeah, right.
But that movie kind of is a sequel because it picks up where the last one left off, right? You see Bruce Banner and he's in the jungle and whatever.
Yeah.
So to me, this feels very similar, where it's like the last Zorro movie they would have done would have been in like the 80s, right?
Yeah.
So it's not really a sequel to those because it's not the same actor, it's whatever.
Right.
But it picks up where you would have left off.
Gotcha,
right?
gotcha.
So it's
Okay.
like, it's sort of a spiritual sequel in the
gotcha,
sense that it's like, it's not really technically, but it could be if you wanted it to.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
But what I like about it is you get to sort of have like, because of a character like Zorro. Well, let's just go. I'm gonna go all the way back. So, Zorro, like I said, he was created by a guy named Johnston McCulley.
Yeah.
He was a pulp writer. Do you know what pulp is?
Nope.
So pulp is what we would think of now as like
The shit in orange juice?
Yeah, no. Pulp referred to the material of like the books and magazines that they were written on. So it's like when you refer to something as like pulp,
gotcha.
It refers to like these. I guess we'd call it now like low rent kind of stories. Like they're more aimed at like the general. They're like pop books, right? So it was these like 50-cent novellas you could buy, or there were like pulp magazines which had like a bunch of stories in them.
Yeah.
And they often dealt with like what we'd think of as like archetypal characters, right?
Yeah.
So like swashbucklers, mystery men, so people like The Shadow.
Yeah.
You had like gangster novels, Western. So kind of all those like genre things that we think of now. Those all came out of this boom in pulp storytelling, right?
Gotcha.
Zorro started in that world. He was originally written in a magazine. His first story, I think, was written over like 5 issues or something like that. And then eventually collected into a novel. But he was kind of... What's interesting about Zorro to me is that he's this like figure in like especially movies, but like comic book storytelling that you can refer kind of all the way back to as like the archetype of all these other characters, right?
Yeah.
Like Zorro is a direct inspiration for Batman. Like you can't
really
like 100%. Like if you look at the two, like he's a rich guy who, decides to don a mask and whatever.
Yeah.
He's got a cave where he hangs out. He dresses all in black. It's just the difference is Bruce Wayne dresses like a bat.
Yeah.
And, Zorro's a guy with a sword.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
So, like, he's kind of the first... it's probably disputed, but he's kind of the first, like, pulp character that had, like, a dual identity. So he's a big inspiration for a lot of different, like... pop culture characters that we think of now.
Yeah.
Including one that we've talked about a couple of times, which is Indiana Jones. Which if you remember when we watched the Raiders of the Lost Ark, one of the big inspirations for Raiders was the old Zorro like serials, action adventure serials. And you can see that in the fact that Indiana Jones and Zorro both use a whip.
Yes.
Right? So I just think that's interesting. It's kind of like he's like the blueprint. You know?
Well, and when I was watching it, I was like, especially during a lot of the big sword fights, I was like, this reminds me of The Princess Bride.
Yes. Yeah.
And specifically the fight on top of the cliff.
Right.
And so, I mean, is Princess Bride, I mean, because I know Princess Bride was like a book first.
Yeah.
But that scene specifically, is that loosely based, or did they draw inspiration? Do you know?
It's funny. It's one of those things. It's kind of like I've talked about before, like Seven Samurai is the inspiration for Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
But then, Seven Samurai was inspired by like John Ford westerns, and westerns were inspired by samurai. So it's like it's sort of a similar thing where, the Princess Bride, a lot of the imagery and like the whatever is inspired by Zorro, right?
Yeah.
But then the Mask of Zorro, that fight scene feels very inspired by the Princess Bride.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
fascinating.
But interesting that you bring it up, because the sword fight coordinator was the same on both movies. So
that makes a lot of sense.
yes, it's the same guy.
Because there was specifically a scene where Antonio Banderas, he like does this like sick ass flip on a tree,
yes,
and then kicks a dude in the chest, and I was like, oh, that's Wesley,
yes,
fucking spinning on the thing,
yes,
kicking Inigo Montoya in the chest, and I was like, huh, interesting.
I think one thing I really like about this movie, I was thinking about this as I watched it, I think it really nails a good balance between like modern filmmaking technique, and sort of old school like filmmaking feeling, right? Like the story itself feels very classical, like pulpy. Like it feels like you would turn on, the Criterion Collection or whatever, and you're watching a Robin Hood movie from the 30s, right? It's like it's got a very similar feeling to that.
Yeah.
But it's shot with a modern camera. It's there's more dynamic camera movement. But even like the stunt work, like there's that scene where Zorro is being chased by all the guys on horseback, right?
Yes.
And he's like jumping from horse to horse.
Yeah.
And at one point he's got like two horses.
Yeah,
and he like jumps
up.
over it. Yeah, it's like that to me feels like a silent movie or like a 30s film.
Yep.
But it's shot in a modern way. And I think that's such a hard balance to strike.
Yeah.
And I think it just nails it. I think it's perfect that way.
I thought that scene was hilarious. Because
It's so good.
Like I had looked away briefly and I looked back and he was just like surfing on two horses and I was like, what is and then he just vaults that tree branch.
There's another surfing scene later, if you remember.
Oh,
There's like
the fucking shovel.
Yeah, he's on the shovel and he's like grinding it down. That's amazing.
That was sick as fuck.
This movie's just it's just such a good time.
Yeah.
It's just hard to like nail how much fun this movie is.
Yeah. Yeah, if you've made it this far, please like pause the podcast, go watch it really quick, and then come back because you will enjoy what we're saying about this movie a lot more.
I agree,
because you'll understand what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's just a marvel.
It is, and I think one thing that sells it a little bit is I don't think you can make a movie like this that is as successful if the chemistry between like the two romantic leads isn't strong.
Right.
And I think they picked two people who you just 100% you're like, yep, they're in love.
Like, from day one.
That is some electric chemistry.
Yeah.
It's hot.
Oh my god. The dancing scene?
Fantastic.
Holy shit.
That's some good stuff.
It was wild.
That's some good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's just, and it's like, I don't know what it is. I feel like movies lately, here I go again. Old man yells at cloud. But I really do feel like there is something where I've seen a lot of films lately, and there's been some exceptions, but I feel like there is something lacking in showing intimacy on screen anymore.
Yep.
And I feel like the ones I saw most recently, I saw that movie Love Lies Bleeding. I thought that was a really good example, and there was a movie called Hitman, which I thought had some good chemistry. But other than that, I feel like a lot of movies now are like sort of pulled back on like, there's this idea, and maybe I'll get some pushback for this. I see the criticism a lot that it's like you shouldn't include a sex scene unless it like serves the story. And I feel like that's like reductive because it's like when you have sex in real life, it's not always to like serve a purpose.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Fun.
Sometimes you just have sex to, because that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like movies now, people have this idea that like everything should serve the plot and everything should whatever. And it's like sometimes it's nice to just see two good-looking people have sex. I don't know, like
we're human.
Yeah,
we're naturally romantic and sexual creatures, and so it's like going back to like the romantic thing.
Yeah,
I think one of the greatest movies to like really do intimacy on screen. And not even in like a just a sex scene way is fucking Pride and Prejudice 2005 because the ballroom dance where Mr. Darcy and what is her name? Keira Knightley's character.
Yeah.
When they're dancing, everybody else in the room drops away.
Yes.
And it's just these two dancing. Even though, like, the people didn't actually leave, it's showing this wonderfully intimate moment between these two people. And in this moment, they feel like they are the only two people in the room.
Right.
And it's fantastic. And I also agree that the plot if there's a sex scene, it doesn't have to serve the plot.
No.
It doesn't make any fucking sense for it to serve the plot.
No, and I think there is something like, and I understand too, I want to be clear. I understand the hesitancy of some people to be naked on screen or like whatever. And I think there should be things put in place like intimacy coordinators.
Yes.
And, making sure the actress isn't being pressured into it or all any performer being pressured into a sex scene. But that being said, I think there has been this push toward like I said, like stripping movies down to being very concise and whatever. And I think, quite frankly, movies have gotten a little bit prudish. I think media in general has gotten a little bit prudish. Yeah. And I don't mean that to mean, like, I want people just fucking smacking,
right.
like, sack to cheeks every moment.
Right. But you're right. It is nice to just see two people. Because the thing is...
there should be some intimacy, is what I'm saying.
Right. If you do have a sex scene, all of a sudden... your connection with these two characters becomes a lot stronger because you see them share this intimate moment.
Yeah.
And then if something happens to one of them, you're like, "Oh my god, stop doing that."
Right.
Like the stakes become higher after they've had sex or whatever. And that just it makes the plot better.
Yeah, and I'm not even just saying just sex anymore, but like I think with this movie, like I'm thinking about, like there is something nice about like the movie really lets their romance kind of play out without having to say anything, right? Like there's moments of physical intimacy, but it's a lot of like loving looks into each other's eyes and
little flirtatious
things and what like there is something to be said for letting your performers tell that story.
I think the greatest, my favorite, intimate moment was their sword fight.
Yeah.
Because they were flirting while also trying to kill each other.
Yes.
But I don't think they were really trying to kill each other.
No.
But it just, man, that was really good.
Yeah.
Because they ended up kissing during the fight.
Yes.
And then he left.
Yeah.
And it was good.
It's just a good movie. And I just think, I don't know. And I think Antonio Banderas, he's, I think he's come under, not fire, but I think he's kind of flown under the radar recently.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is, he just hasn't had a ton of big roles lately, but I think he is underrated as a performer. I think he's really good at selling like charisma. Like he's got a lot of charisma, and he's just like he's good at selling that role.
Yes.
And you just believe him as this like suave, swashbuckling,
Right. Smooth
whatever.
talking,
Yeah,
whatever.
What I like too is they really let him be a real grub at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
He's like a sweaty grub.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I love his introduction. Well, you see him as a kid initially, but then later I love his introduction as just this like sweaty, awful bandit who's just drinking and just being terrible.
Yeah.
I like that the three of them, just these sweaty bandits. I think they're fantastic.
Well, I think it helps with his like development, his character development, because we see him sort of grow up.
Yeah, for
a
sure.
little bit. I think he still kind of holds on to his ways because I love this movie for so many different reasons, but this one like is top like 3 reasons. I just love this about Zorro because this is the second like piece of Zorro media I've seen.
Right.
But it's all about, feels like at the core, sticking it to the man.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And rebelling against your oppressors and taking back your autonomy and all this kind of stuff.
100%.
And I love, because at one point Zorro has to go undercover.
Yeah.
Kind of. And they end up at this like gold mine.
Yeah.
And Three Finger Jack, who's one of the bandits he was riding with, is there.
Yeah.
And he gets shot and killed.
Yes.
By the same guy that killed his brother.
Right.
And there's just this moment where he walks up to Three Finger Jack, and I think this is a testament to how good of an actor Antonio Banderas is. I could see the just raw fury in his eyes. He's like, I gotta kill this dude.
Yeah.
And I gotta free these people because this isn't right.
Right.
And I love a good revolution.
Oh yeah.
Overthrow your whatever.
I will say one thing too that I think we should bring back in movies. Just to jump forward a little bit. I think we should bring back like really just killing the shit out of your main villains. Like just kill the hell out of them. Like like the one guy gets stabbed through the abdomen and then like several tons of gold fall on him and then he plummets to his death and then presumably explodes.
Yes.
And I think more villains need that treatment.
Yes. Absolutely. I can't even remember like the last film where the villain died that horrendously.
That awfully, yeah.
Oh, well, I think Indiana Jones does a fantastic job, especially in Raiders.
Yeah.
Because the Nazis, they just melt.
Yeah.
Which is spectacularly gruesome.
Yeah. Speaking of gruesome, I think this movie is a little bit gruesome for a PG-13.
Just a little bit.
There's a couple of pretty shocking moments.
Like the head.
I was going to say, as a kid, I was quite shocked when there was a head in a jar.
Yeah.
Which also, that seems very unsanitary to be drinking out of.
Yeah. Wait, they were actually drinking out of that shit?
Well, don't you see there's the moment where he tips the cup in and he drinks from it?
That cannot be...
No, 1,000% there's a flesh-eating bacteria in that.
Yeah.
In that... jar.
That's so gross.
Yeah, that's real gross.
That's vile. I'm glad he got killed the way he got killed.
Yeah, me too.
God.
Something I found interesting. I know this annoys some people, but I generally don't care when this is in a movie. They kind of play a little bit loose with like history. Like the captain in this, I can't remember his name. It's like Captain. Oh, what's his name? I can't remember. He's the blonde guy.
Yeah.
He's based on a real person.
Oh, really?
Like there's a real guy who has his name, but he died like well into his like middle age.
Yeah.
He would have been like in his 40s or 50s.
Yeah.
And he also wasn't really involved in this like particular thing. He was one of those guys who was just like, he was a bounty hunter, and then he was the head of the California Rangers, who were sort of like a militia group. But they kind of paint him as this like almost like a Confederate general. Like he's got sort of the Confederate outfit.
Yeah.
But this would have been at least 20 years before the Civil War. So, and then also to Antonio Banderas' character and his brother. His brother, at the very least, shares the name of a real bandit.
Oh, really?
Joaquin Murrieta, who really was killed by that guy.
Oh.
So I think that's kind of interesting.
That is fascinating.
That they kind of included some real life people.
Yeah.
It doesn't really affect the story.
Right.
I know some people get annoyed by that like historical fiction thing, but like it's a movie. Who cares?
Yeah. Who gives a shit? Well, and like I think it's kind of the same with like Les Mis.
Yeah.
It's not like the people in Les Mis. I don't think are really based. There might be a couple of people that are based off of real life.
Yeah.
People, but it's mainly based around like the French Revolution.
Right.
Which and the movie or the musical is based off of the book.
Yeah.
But if anybody knows anything about the book, there's a reason it's called The Brick.
Yeah.
Because that bitch is like thousands of pages long.
Yeah.
It's like
It is.
I forget the author's name. He's a horny man that is obsessed with the sewers. But he's such a long-winded author.
Yes.
But it is based historically, and yeah, I like watching it. I don't really know jack shit about the French Revolution, but I don't care that they might have gotten some things wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's whatever. I don't care.
Yeah, you're using it to tell a story. I mean,
Right.
it's something that's done in Hong Kong all the time. Like most of the time when you're watching like a period piece kung fu film,
Yeah.
a lot of the characters are based on real people. Like
Yeah.
there's like 100 Wong Fei-hung movies. There's like 20 Yip Man films. Like Yip Man did not, beat up a whole bunch of dudes and save a factory from the Japanese or whatever. Like
No.
there's no way. It's just,
Yeah.
So I don't care. I'm like whatever.
It's fun.
as long as it's consistent with whatever.
Yeah.
Um.
Fun fact about the author of Les Mis. When he died, and this is a testament to how horny he was.
Yeah.
When he died, all of the brothels shut down
Good.
in mourning
Good.
for him.
Love it.
Like all the hookers and all the sex workers showed up to his funeral to pay their respects.
We don't have any just real unashamed dirt like horn bags anymore, do we?
No,
just
we
guys who are
don't.
like, I be fucking prostitutes all day long.
Yeah.
And I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Well, no, we had Chet Hanks. But
Well,
why don't we have what's his name? Hunter Biden, I guess.
Well, and
Smoking crack and whatever.
and JD Vance's fucking couches. So.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to get political. I'm going to get a little bit political.
A little bit.
Just to say this. There was a lot of this hubbub made about Hunter Biden a little while ago, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, you shouldn't break the law. It doesn't matter who your dad is or whatever.
Right.
But at the same token, I'm like, if Hunter Biden wants to wake up every morning and smoke crack, good for him. Like,
Well, yeah.
whatever. As long as he's getting his shit done,
Yeah.
Who cares if he's smoking crack?
Here's my philosophy on like pretty much everything is as long as you're not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
I literally don't.
He's
give a
not hurting
fuck.
anybody by smoking crack.
Yeah.
What? So what?
The only person he's hurting is himself.
Yeah. Should he do it in the White House? I guess
Probably
not.
but
Whatever.
yeah. Again, it doesn't affect me.
Joe Biden's not smoking crack.
as far as we know.
As far as we know.
Imagine.
He should have smoked some for that first debate.
Probably.
Damn.
Oh, imagine Joe Biden just whacked down on crack.
That would be amazing. I love the meme where it was like, what if after Joe Biden dropped out of the race, he was just completely lucid? Just showed up the next day talking normal.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I love that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anywho.
that was politics talk.
Yeah.
Please don't vote for Trump.
Please.
Please, for the love of God.
Begging.
We're on the precipice
I know.
of collapsing as a country.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. I'm like Taylor Swift. I'm just throwing my endorsement out there,
Yeah.
Might drive a couple people away from actually signing up, unlike Taylor Swift. But
You're right.
people are like, your take was so bad, I'm not voting.
Well, I am.
Yeah, and you should, as you should.
Yep.
I should say too, this is not related to anything. I shouldn't
Yeah.
even be bringing this up. If you're an American and you're listening to this, you should vote.
Please.
Like, even if you're not going to vote for who I think you should vote for, which is
Yep.
which is not Trump, you should still vote.
Yes.
Like, even if you're not going to vote for president,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of stuff on your ballot. Just go onto your state's website, look up your sample ballot, There's all kinds of stuff on there that you
Oh
should
yeah,
vote for.
the bonds,
Yeah.
like local bonds
Yeah.
for like, hey, can we have money to build like a new library or renovate
Yeah.
a school or give more school buses? Like, vote for that shit.
Vote for your bonds, and you should vote in every election, not just the presidential.
No, yeah.
Vote in your state elections, vote
Yep.
in your local elections.
Yep.
There's like an election every year.
Yes.
And you should vote in all of them.
Yes.
Because it's good for democracy.
It is. Well, and that's the other thing is that like we are lucky enough to live in a country that is democratic.
Yes. For
Right.
the most part, yes.
For the most part, like we get the opportunity and we have the right to vote.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. Like,
Yes.
I know people are like, oh, your vote doesn't matter because of the electoral college and there's like 300 blah blah million what. Shut up.
Yeah.
Shove a whole fucking sock in it, you dipshit. All right.
Yeah.
Sure. Your one vote may not seem that important.
Right.
But if you actually do your research and you do vote, your vote does matter.
Yeah, and not only, I mean, I think that is also reductive because in a very real sense, your vote does count
Yes.
in local elections, which are much smaller,
Yes.
right? Like, and in something like, like you said, if you're voting on a bond, there's no electoral college. It's
No.
just, will it pass or won't it?
Yeah, they
And-
count whichever side has the most.
Yeah, and
that's what they go with.
You are directly impacting that result,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like, yeah, if you live in New York or you live in California or whatever, you are one of 20 million people, right?
Right.
But if you live like in New Mexico, we have all kinds of counties that have tiny little towns,
Yeah.
and you might be voting one of 1,000 people or one of even 10,000 people makes a huge difference. So
In Los Alamos, right, our population is only like 8,000 or 9,000 people,
Yeah.
right? And so in a town like that, especially, your vote really matters because we have a national laboratory there.
yes,
And so sometimes, a lot of the times, those bonds are about the labs.
Yeah.
Or it's, there's somebody on there who might want to take funds away from the labs.
That's right.
And that sort of, and so it's like in counties like that, really, really important. And that's not to say that like other small counties don't matter, because you might be in a county that's like super red.
yeah,
And it's just horrible to live there. Well, if you get out and vote and you have like a bunch of other people to vote to change things, real change will happen.
Yes.
And that's how we fix things. That's how we move forward.
yeah. I think we should move on because this is
Yeah.
not a political podcast.
No.
I just wanted to point that out because I feel like a lot of people place too much emphasis on the presidential election.
Yes.
And it's like you need to vote in everything.
Everything,
But
yes.
Anyway,
Aside from that, Zoro.
Zorro is a Republican. No,
No, I feel like if anything, he'd be a
would
strong
be.
leftist.
I wouldn't say a strong because he's still a rich guy.
That's true.
Well, maybe young Zorro would be, but
Yeah.
old Zorro was a rich guy who was like,
Yeah.
I'll still be rich, but
Yeah.
I'll beat up some people,
Yeah.
which just screams center Democrat to me. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
100%, yeah.
Like Batman. Batman's a
Yes.
center Democrat all the way.
Yeah. If anything, Batman leans a little Republican.
Sure, yeah, maybe a little bit. Captain America voted for Trump, and
100%.
just kidding. We can all agree the Punisher definitely did. 1,000% the Punisher voted for Trump.
Yeah.
Anyway, what were we talking about?
Zorro.
Zorro,
Banger of a movie.
It is a banger.
I was gonna say the sword choreography.
It's phenomenal.
Oh my god! Here's the thing. Sure, guns are cool. Whatever.
Yes.
Fuck them. Give me a sword. Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, that shit. I love sword fights.
Yes.
There's something just so elegant about them, and it's like dance-like.
I think this is one of the better sword fight movies. Like, I'm going through my head, like, some of the good ones. I definitely think this is one of the better ones. Like,
Yeah.
I think this has better sword fighting than, like, Highlander. I think this has better sword fighting than... I would even put this up against, like, the first Pirates movie in terms of, like, sword fights. So
Yeah.
I just... Yeah, it's there is something very fun about just the clanging, you know?
Well, and going back to intimacy, sword fight is just another really great, like, intimate thing because
Yes.
you have to fight up close and personal. And there's, we see a lot of times, they get like up close and their swords are crossed,
Yeah.
and they're like face to face.
Yeah.
And even though it's not like romantic in any sense, it's still intimate.
Yeah.
And
But
so, because like with guns, I could be hundreds of feet away and just shoot you and okay, whatever, right? Yeah. With a sword fight, you have to look your opponent in the eye.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I was going to say something too. I think, referring to what you were talking about with like that sword fight between Catherine Zeta-Jones and Antonio Banderas, as like a form of intimacy, there is a little bit of innuendo in that scene too, right?
Yep.
Like, there's the very not gratuitous, but there is the very obvious scene where she pulls the sword out and she like kind of readies herself or whatever, and you see his sword like pop up, like he pops it up, and it's like you couldn't be more obvious with your metaphor there, but it's because he had a boner.
Yeah, bricked up on a
I
Tuesday.
just peeked the hell out of that mic. Sorry,
Yeah, it's okay.
I just kicked you too.
Yeah, we're playing footsies.
We're getting intimate here.
Yeah. No, it's, and that's the other great thing about like sword fight is that you can do some of those like more innuendo-y types of things.
Yes.
And you can there's a lot of symbology that can go into a sword fight.
Yeah. He does cut her top off too.
Well, yeah. And that's not even just a metaphor. He just
does that.
He wanted to see some titties.
Bad move, Antonio.
Yeah.
Bad boy.
What I was going to ask, what else is she in? Because you said her name.
Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yes, and Zeta. It sounds so familiar. What else has she been in?
She's been in a ton of stuff. She's in, if everybody watched Wednesday on Netflix, she's in that. She plays Morticia Adams.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What else is she in? Fun fact about her, and in fact, a fun fact about a couple of people in this. Antonio Banderas is Spanish. He's not Mexican.
Gotcha.
It's not really relevant, I don't think, in a movie like this, but it's just worth pointing out. Anthony Hopkins is English. He's not Spanish. And Catherine Zeta-Jones is Welsh. She's not Spanish. I thought she was Spanish for a very long time because of her in this movie. She's not. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of the supporting cast is actually Mexican.
Yeah.
But, there's one Spaniard in the main cast and everybody else is white. Which again, like, we probably shouldn't do that anymore, but also it's fine.
Whatever.
She's in Chicago.
Okay.
She's in The Terminal, which is that, I think it's a Tom Hanks movie where he's like stuck at the airport or whatever.
Sure. Never seen it.
She's in Ocean's 12. She's in Ocean's 11 too.
That's not the one that's all women, right?
No, that's Ocean's 8.
That's right.
Apparently she's in The Phantom. All right, this isn't helping me.
Yeah. I think if anything, I might have heard that she was in Wednesday.
Yeah, she's in Wednesday, and you've never seen Chicago, huh?
I haven't, but I keep wanting to.
It's a good movie.
Really?
It's a good movie.
I know it's a fantastic. It's like a Tony Award winning musical.
Yeah, the movie's good. I mean,
really?
It's yeah.
Is it also is the movie a musical?
Yeah,
or it is. Okay.
I think it's based on the musical.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I just didn't know if they took the music out and just had it as like a just straight up movie.
No, I think it is a musical.
Musical. Okay.
Anyway.
Go see theater, guys.
Yeah, we saw theater.
Oh, really?
We saw an opera for this.
Oh, well, yeah.
We saw a Zorro opera.
Yeah.
Which very similar to this movie. Really, Antonio Banderas is only Zorro for like the last like 30 minutes.
Yep.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine.
Yeah.
I do like, just to go back to the action a little bit. I miss the trope of when your main character's in a fight and you think he's winning, and then they bring out the real big guy.
Yeah.
You know? That's a thing that I feel like used to be in a lot of movies and you don't see so much anymore.
Yeah.
But there's, the classic gag of he's like, haha, I got you all. And then he backs up and there's just a huge guy behind
just
him.
A massive. And like that dude was legit like twice as tall as he was.
Yeah.
He was massive.
He was massive.
For a second, because they didn't show his face at first, I was like, is that Andre the Giant?
No, unfortunately.
Yeah.
He does knock all his teeth out with a couple of cannonballs, which I thought was fun.
That was pretty funny.
That whole scene, though, I think is incredible. I think it's so much fun. And it's very reminiscent to me of like something I brought up earlier, which is that Robin Hood film. I think it's called The Adventures of Robin Hood.
Yeah.
With famous terrible human being. What's his name? I can't remember. I'm struggling today, guys.
That's okay.
My football team lost, and I'm devastated.
Really?
Anyway, it doesn't matter. what's his name? Well, anyway, that scene feels reminiscent to me of like a movie like that, like a Robin Hood film from the 30s, where it's just like people swinging off rafters. And, he's fighting 4 guys with the sword and swinging it back and forth. It's just incredible.
It's so good.
It's just dynamic and fun, and it feels to me. I feel like I've talked about this way at the beginning of this podcast. Action movies, I feel like, have a lot in common with musicals, right?
Yes.
Like the choreography, sort of the whatever. And that scene to me feels very inspired by a musical, right? It's almost like dancing. It's like he's coming over here and he's doing this, and the music is like,
Yeah.
And so it's an incredible scene.
It's very good. Speaking of music, soundtrack for this movie.
Oh, banger.
Kind of slaps.
Slaps so hard.
Kind of slaps.
And it has a great sort of repeating motif that's really nice.
Love a good motif.
I feel like it's a good mix of like classical orchestral music and sort of a Spanish-inspired guitar flourish.
I love like classic like flamenco.
Oh yeah.
Music and just like I love like the Spanish guitar.
Yes.
Oh my god, I could listen to that shit for hours.
This is a great soundtrack.
Yeah.
I was thinking that too while watching it.
Yeah.
I'm just like, this is just a banger. Just top to bottom, it's a banger.
Yeah. Fantastic casting.
Great eyeliner on Anthony Hopkins the whole movie.
Yeah.
What'd you think about? Okay, one thing I think is a little bit of a criticism. I think the plot is sort of circular.
Yeah.
Insofar as I feel like if he really wanted to just go kill that guy, he could have.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they sort of do a lot of work just to get to the point where they're just going to murder them anyway.
Right.
It's not like they have some big elaborate plan to
No.
like, oh, we're going to upend their plan and sell them out. They're just like, well, I don't know, let's just go get him, I guess.
Yep. We're just gonna walk through the front door.
Yeah, like I know they have to free all the prisoners, but like,
Yeah.
they could have just killed him before he got to that point.
Right.
But again, I guess the point is that they blow up all the gold. Which, okay, another thing. I feel like they had to really go out of their way to make the villain like obviously he's a bad guy, right?
Yeah.
He's like a Spanish aristocrat and he's like an
yeah.
ass. But I feel like they had to really be like, this guy like
Is terrible.
he's got all these prisoners to make you care about the fact he wants to buy California. You know what I mean? Like,
which is, first of all, is the most hilarious thing ever. Because, like, most villains are like, oh, I want to take over the drug world or take over the whatever. This is just like, yeah, I want to buy California.
Right. Because, like, they kind of go out of their way to be like, the Spanish government sucked.
Yeah.
And then the Mexican government sucked. So, like, whatever.
Yeah.
So you kind of don't really. You're like, what do I give a shit if this guy buys California? Like, he'll just be the same.
It's gonna be a dick either way.
It's kind of like now, whenever you hear like, oh, Comcast is gonna buy, T-Mobile. You're like, okay,
sure.
What? They both are terrible. Like, what does it matter?
Both suck.
Not that it's good that we only have one company, but it's just that it's like. They had to go out of their way to be like, no, he's got slaves. To be like, oh, okay, I guess it should be good that he dies.
Yeah.
Because I guess it's not really, I'm like, I don't care if he uses a bunch of gold to buy California, whatever. Who cares?
Also, I love that they're using the gold in California to buy California. Because it's like, no.
Yeah.
I don't.
That's why they gotta be like, well, we gotta blow up the mine afterward to make sure that like they don't know. Yeah.
I thought that was so funny. We're going to use the gold that we found in this land to buy the land.
Right.
Bitch, no. I'm just going to keep the land and mine the gold myself.
Yeah. And then I think in the next one, because there is a sequel to this movie.
Oh, okay.
I think they're like part of the U.S. now. Because it's like after the Spanish or the Mexican-American War. Anyway. Doesn't really matter. Yeah. The sequel's not as good. I'll say that.
Fair enough.
I don't think it's bad.
Yeah.
I really do think it's okay, but it's just not as good. But yeah, I just think this is a great movie.
Fantastic stuff.
I got really nothing else to add. I just think it's just a good it's just a good fucking movie.
Yeah, I don't think I had anything else to talk about either. I thought this was really unfortunate when Antonio Banderas, his brother, and Three Finger Jack when we first see them as like the bandits.
Oh yeah.
And they tied all those guys to the cactus, buck ass naked with their dicks up against cactus.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's mean.
That's
just cruel.
That was rough.
It's rough for no reason. Like, that's unnecessarily mean.
Yeah, that's cruel and unusual punishment.
I really think so. Yeah. But I think that's kind of one of the things with Zoro I was reading about. He's sort of like known for being kind of an ass.
Well,
to like he's like big on humiliation, like as opposed to
he has a
he
humiliation
does.
kink.
I knew that was coming. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That's why his name is Zoro, like the fox, because he's like slippery and mean. You know.
Yeah.
But anyway. Well, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
All right. Bye. No.
Adios.
How many times can I do that joke without it getting old?
All right.
All right, Grayson.
Yes,
This is everybody's favorite part of the show.
Yeah, it is.
Where you get to tell us what you would rate this movie out of 10.
I'm gonna go 9.
Okay, yeah.
A solid 9, only because it was a little long.
Yes.
It was a little long, and like you were, some of the other, like, whatever the other criticisms we were talking about, I totally agreed with. Just kind of like it did feel like they were like making it, and then they went, hey, this guy isn't as like shitty as we need him to be. How do we make him shittier? And then some like PA or whatever in the back was like, slaves?
Yeah.
And I went, he's hired.
Yeah.
Give him a raise or
Give him a
whatever.
raise. You got the job now.
Yeah. It did feel a little like shoehorned in because we'd never heard about any of that before then.
Yeah. I agree.
And so that was a little meh. But
I agree.
yeah, for the most part, it's just the length.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it like an 8.5.
8.5.
I think it's really solid.
Yeah.
And I had another criticism and it just slipped my mind.
Oh no.
Oh, I feel like this is just a tiny thing. I feel like the with the costumes and the set design, I feel like they went a little too hard on like period stuff. And I feel like they could have gone a little further with like sort of embellishing it a little bit.
Yeah.
Insofar as like when I like a period drama, I like it to be real, you know, like almost absurd how like, you know, colorful and crazy everything is. And to me, the sets and everything feel a little bit flat. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah.
But if I think about something like Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Pirates of the Caribbean goes out of its way to be like, this is the pirate era. You know what I mean? It's just like...
It's way over the top,
It's grimy and slimy and like everything is, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, they really are trying to be like, this is what it would have looked like in this period, which again is fine.
Yeah. I think it's cool to like see what that sort of thing would look like.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we don't have that really anymore.
Right.
But no, I totally agree.
But I think what the end result of that is it makes it look a little bit flat. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
Like you think about something like Pride and Prejudice, right?
Yes.
Pride and Prejudice is pretty period accurate.
Yeah.
But what you remember are these big dresses and the you know,
Yep.
the tall whatever and the big fields full of flowers.
The ballroom.
The ballroom, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, I can't really in my mind picture a specific set.
Yeah.
Besides sort of that big courtyard where they have the dance.
Yeah, and the mine.
And the mine, but the mine is just a mine. It's not like anything. It's not the mine of Moria. You know what I'm saying? It's just like a mine.
Yeah.
So I knock at some points for that, and then like you said, the length is kind of just the big thing. But
I think I'm gonna drop mine down just a little bit. Because 9 felt a little. I love it. I do love this movie.
Yeah.
9 did feel a little too high.
Yeah.
I'm gonna drop it down to about an 8.7.
Okay, no, that's still very good.
Yeah. I just 9 just felt too.
Still a high B.
Yes.
That's a B plus.
It is a B plus. So.
All right. Well, that does it for this episode.
Yeah, it does.
Which brings us to everybody's favorite part of the show. It's called Editor's Picks.
Hell yeah.
Now, bend down and touch your toes.
Bend over. Would you excuse me, Captain Love?
Thank you.
Like a turtle fucking.
Ugh.
Have you never heard a turtle fuck?
No, I don't need to. I'm good.
It sounds exactly like
I saw you reach for your phone.
it sounds exactly like that. It's like a yeah. Yeah.
Oh boy.
They look weird doing it too.
Oh man. Anyway,
It's funny.
this is the part of the show where we each recommend you go and watch a film.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be an action film, but it does have to be a film. What do you got? And I can go first if you need time.
Well, since I've been this is gonna be a funny one. For some reason I've been thinking about it a lot. Cars.
Hell yeah. I was thinking about Cars today.
That movie I feel like is, I don't want to say criminally underrated, but I feel like there was like, when it came out, people loved it. There was maybe like a little bit of like a resurgence later on.
Yeah.
But for the most part, nobody really talks about it anymore in terms of like some of the like top tier animated films that have come out.
Right.
I think Cars is just incredible. It is like, it's just the first movie. It gets weird the second, third movie.
Yeah.
But like the first Cars film is just so goddamn good.
It is good. It's tight.
It is. It's really tight. And every time I either watch it or think about it, I only have happy thoughts.
Yeah. It is a solid movie. And it's a weirdly nostalgic movie.
Yes.
It feels like it's not really aimed at kids.
No.
In a way. Like it is, obviously,
Yeah.
but it's almost about like the death of the American dream.
No, and not only the American dream, but just like the American West.
Yeah, and it's sort of about like industrialization
Yep.
and like how we've sort of like killed like the American spirit. Like the sort of anyway.
One of the saddest moments in that entire film is when I forget her name, the blue Porsche.
Yeah.
It was telling Lightning McQueen about like the history of this like little town, Radiator Springs, and we see this like flashback of when, you know, the interstate system is created.
Yeah.
And you know, the entire town, they come together and they put up this big banner that says, you know, welcome interstate travelers and everything. And slowly nobody's coming through that town anymore. And it's just like, damn. And that happens in real life.
Yeah.
Like after all these interstates were created, all these tiny little towns and all these like little whatevers along some of these, like especially Route 66, just disappeared off of the map because nobody was driving through them anymore because cars got more efficient and there was the interstate.
Yeah, that's true.
And
that is true. That's a banger of a movie. Good choice.
It is, yeah. If you haven't seen Cars yet, oh boy.
Go watch Cars.
Yeah.
That movie slaps.
It does. And killer soundtrack.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, fuck, yeah. That movie has a great soundtrack. It's got that Rascal Flatts cover of Life is a Highway.
Yep.
Oh, man, that's a banger of a
It's
soundtrack.
so good. And it has a great scene, the second race, where Luigi changes Lightning McQueen's tire in like record time.
Yes.
And all the other pit stop crew from that one dickhead, their mustaches fall off.
Yeah. Oh,
that's
so good.
So good.
And Cars 3 is basically Rocky 6. It's like, it's about like an aged like sports star trying to get back in the game and like having to give it up for a younger or whatever. It's Creed basically.
Essentially.
The Cars franchise is interesting.
Fascinating stuff.
I'm trying to think. The dog is trying to break in.
Yeah.
I totally blanked on what my suggestion was going to be. Wow. I guess I started thinking about Cars.
That's my bad.
I'm going to go with, just because I just saw it, the original Beetlejuice. I'm going to recommend that.
I've never actually seen any Beetlejuice.
You know, it's one of those things where it's like, it feels like a movie everybody has seen, but then you really think about it and you're like, oh, I don't think I've ever actually sat down and watched it.
Yeah.
Just a delightful film. I'm not really a big Tim Burton fan, but that movie in particular is just a delight. It's just a good time.
Is it a musical? Because I know there's a Broadway musical.
No.
Okay.
It's got a musical sequence, but it's not a musical. It's sort of a quirky comedy.
Okay.
Sort of not really horror comedy. It's just like an offbeat kind of. I was telling my wife this. I'm like, if Tim Burton hadn't had the career he's had, I feel like Beetlejuice would be like this hidden gem of a movie. It'd be like one of those movies people tell you, like, you should go watch this. It's this like quirky comedy from the 80s and it's got like stop motion in it or whatever. Yeah, it's just good. And the sequel is good. We went and saw that last weekend.
Nice.
But yeah.
I have wanted to see Beetlejuice.
It's worth a watch. It's on Max, I think.
Hell yeah. What I really want to see is the musical, because I always see, I forget which number it is, but the music in it is just fantastic. So I really want to see the musical, but I feel like I should watch the movie first just to kind of understand
the story
of it.
Well, there you go.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, that pretty much does it.
Excellent.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
If you
shout out, first of all, I meant to do this at the start. Shout out to like most of my coworkers. Gave them all stickers, and then people in the morning shift were asking about the stickers.
Oh, there you go.
So, and my coworkers who had stickers were telling them all about our podcast and everything. So,
hell yeah.
If any of you are from my work, hello, thank you for listening.
Yes.
It means a shit ton.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We're just going to do a live... Let's see, I'm going to do a live review check.
Ooh.
Okay, no new ones.
All right.
I'm just going to do a live subscriber check while we're on the air.
Ooh.
Nope, nothing new, but we're at 604 now.
All right.
Yeah, we're really climbing. That last one episode we did is doing really well, so I'm happy about that. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Thank you to Grayson's coworkers for keeping this ship alive. Ship alive? Afloat.
Afloat, yeah.
It could be alive, I guess. We could be riding a man through the seas.
It's like we're just like living in Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, feel free to give us a nice review.
Yep.
Subscribe to us on YouTube.
Yep.
Leave a comment. Leave a like.
Yep.
Leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple or wherever you're listening.
Yep. You can follow us on Spotify. I think that's what it is, following.
Yes.
Yeah, you can follow us, and I think it'll give you updates when we post new shit.
It will. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. I haven't posted on TikTok in a little while, but I'm trying to get back into it.
Yep.
You can send us an email to vivalaaction@gmail.com.
We also have the Google form.
We have a Google form below in the description or whatever if you want to click on that link. And
there's a link somewhere.
There's
Where
a
it
link
takes
somewhere.
you, we don't know.
We really don't know. I've never found it. I do know, but yeah, click on that.
Yep.
That's pretty much it.
Good vocalization.
Thank you. I've been working on it. My throat's just dry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Yep. Thank you.
And we'll talk to you next. Oh, if you want to find Grayson, you'll find them stacking chairs at your local
Presbyterian
church. And you'll find me flinging poo at the monkeys at the zoo.
Really turn the tables on them, you know?
Send it back to them.
Yeah. Return to sender, bitch.
I was just seeing if we had any suggestions. We don't. Okay. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Yep.
We'll talk to you next time.
Adios.